There's a place in London where Britain's most dangerous people simply disappear. Not forever, just long enough for the world to forget they exist. Until something happens. A name resurfaces in the news. An escape, a death, or an event that shatters the silence and reminds us they're still there. This place has walls so thick, screams can't escape. It has cameras that never blink and guards who carry secrets they'll never share. Welcome to Belmarsh Prison. From the outside, it's unassuming. Gray buildings, fences, nothing that screams danger. But inside are people whose names you know, people who try to change history or destroy it. If you want to know what really happens behind those walls, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment telling us which prison mysteries fascinate you the most. The year is 1991. Belmarsh opens its doors in southeast London. The government calls it a Category A prison, the highest security level in Britain. This is where the country's most dangerous individuals are held. But here's the thing, when it first opened, nobody really cared. It was just another prison. That all changed in 2001. After the September 11th attacks in America, governments worldwide began a frantic search for terrorists. Britain was no different. They needed a secure place to hold suspects, somewhere unreachable. They chose Belmarsh. Suddenly, the prison filled with a new type of inmate. Not just robbers and killers, but people accused of planning attacks, with ties to feared organizations. The media gave Belmarsh a new, chilling name, Britain's Guantanamo Bay. Inside, there's a prison within the prison, the High Security Unit, or HSU. Only 48 cells for the 48 most dangerous people held in Britain at any given time. What does it take to earn a spot there? The cells are small and cold, containing only a toilet and a bed. No personal items, nothing that could become a weapon. The concrete walls absorb all sound. You could scream, and no one would hear you. Each solid steel door has a small window with a metal flap controlled from the outside. Inmates never know when they're being watched. A camera above records every single moment. The routine is stark. Wake up at 7 a.m., breakfast through a slot in the door. 1 hour of exercise in a small concrete yard, sometimes alone, sometimes with one or two others. The other 23 hours are spent in the cell. Waiting, thinking. Guards rarely speak about their work. They've signed papers promising secrecy. But sometimes, stories leak out from those who've left. One former guard called the HSU the quietest place I've ever worked. Not because it was peaceful, but because fear hangs in the air like fog. Another mentioned the inmates' eyes, describing them as empty, as if they've learned to switch off their emotions just to survive. But not everyone is silent. In 2019, an event reminded the world of the danger held within Belmarsh. Usman Khan, a fishmonger from London, was released after serving time for terrorism. The government believed he was reformed. They were wrong. Khan went to an event near London Bridge wearing a fake suicide vest and armed with knives. He killed 2 people before being shot dead. The shocking truth? Khan had been in Belmarsh, in the HSU, surrounded by other extremists. Instead of being reformed, he became more dangerous. This raised a terrifying question. What happens when you put the most extreme minds together in one place? Do they learn from each other? Plan for the future? Is Belmarsh just holding terrorists, or is it creating them? But it's not just terrorists. It's killers, gang leaders, and criminals so notorious other prisons refused them. In 2018, a man arrived who made global headlines, Julian Assange. The founder of WikiLeaks, he wasn't a killer, but a publisher who released secret government documents. Some called him a hero, others a traitor. While the US sought his extradition, Britain locked him in Belmarsh. For months, Assange lived alongside murderers and terrorists. His lawyers claimed the conditions were destroying him, causing weight loss, confusion, and signs of psychological torture. The government insisted he was treated like any other prisoner. But visitors, from lawyers to journalists, all said the same thing. He looked broken, as if something inside him had been switched off. What does it do to a mind to be locked in a small cell for 23 hours a day, day after day? The story of Belmarsh is a story of secrets, fear, and the dark side of justice. There's so much more to uncover. Imagine a place where silence is a weapon, where being alone for too long can break your mind. Doctors call it sensory deprivation. The brain craves stimulation, variety. Without it, it starts to malfunction. People hallucinate. They lose all track of time. The United Nations even has rules against this. stating that keeping someone in isolation for more than 15 days can be considered mental torture. Welcome to Belmarsh, Britain's most secure prison, and its high security unit, or HSU. The prison says the HSU isn't for torture, it's for security. They argue these inmates are too dangerous to mix with the general population. It's about protection, not punishment. But when you're the one locked in that cell, the line between the two becomes incredibly thin. In 2021, government inspectors visited Belmarsh. Their report was alarming. Violence was on the rise, with more attacks on both inmates and guards. The prison was becoming unstable. And despite all the security, the cameras, and the locked doors, drugs were flooding the facility. They were smuggled in by visitors, corrupt guards, and even by a method straight out of a movie: drones. People flew small drones over the walls at night, dropping packages of drugs, phones, and weapons into the exercise yards. The prison installed anti-drone tech, but it became a constant battle of cat and mouse, a war between technology and sheer determination. Inside the HSU, where inmates were supposed to be totally isolated, these drugs created a new, unexpected problem. Suddenly, these isolated individuals were communicating, trading, and building networks that reached far beyond the prison walls. The guards cracked down with more searches and punishments, but it barely made a dent. In a place where people feel they have nothing left to lose, fear just doesn't work the same way. Prisoners have a term for long sentences: dead time. It's when your life is frozen while the world outside moves on. Your loved ones grow older, they forget. In the HSU, this dead time feels heavier. Because you're not just locked away from the world, you're locked away from everyone else inside, too. You're utterly alone with your thoughts, and sometimes, those can be the most dangerous enemy of all. To survive, some create rigid routines: exercise, prayer, reading, anything to give the day structure and make time feel like it's moving forward. Others cope by planning for their release, fantasizing about what they'll do, who they'll see. These dreams might never come true, but they offer something priceless in a place like Belmarsh: hope. But then there are those who don't cope. They break down, they harm themselves, they simply give up. A 2022 report on mental health in British prisons found that units like the HSU have the highest rates of self-harm and suicide attempts in the entire system. The report recommended changes: more time out of cells, better mental health support, but few were implemented. In a prison holding some of the most dangerous people, security always trumps everything else, including mental well-being. Yet, there is a small glimmer of a different path. Belmarsh has a classroom. Inmates with good behavior can learn basic math, reading, even some computer skills. The teachers are incredibly brave, sitting across from people who have committed horrific acts, trying to teach them something that might offer a future. Does it work? Sometimes. But the question hangs over everyone at Belmarsh: can people like this truly change? Or are we just waiting for them to cause harm again? As night falls, the lights dim but never go out. In the HSU, the silence is profound, broken only by a guard's footsteps or the hum of ventilation. Many former inmates say the hours between midnight and 4 a.m. are the worst. It's when your mind plays tricks, when regrets become unbearable, and the ghosts of your past choices come to visit. Morning comes, and the routine begins again. But something is changing within these walls. A new generation of inmates is arriving, connected to new kinds of crime. The old methods of control might not be enough. What happens when the most dangerous place in Britain becomes even more dangerous? That's what we're about to find out. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of our world. In 2020, something breached Belmarsh's thickest walls: a global pandemic. As Britain locked down, inmates in Belmarsh couldn't just stay home. They were trapped in their cells, breathing recycled air with hundreds of others. The illness spread like wildfire. Inmates got sick, then guards. The prison went into a total lockdown. Everyone was confined to their cells 23 hours a day. Visits, exercise, everything stopped. For the 48 men in the High Security Unit, or HSU, it was business as usual. But for the others, it was terrifying. Imagine being stuck in a small room, knowing a deadly virus is all around you, with no way to protect yourself. While other prisons erupted in riots, Belmarsh felt eerily quiet. But this wasn't acceptance, it was resignation. Hope was dying. Self-harm incidents skyrocketed by 60%. The mental health crisis became catastrophic. And yet, even in this extreme isolation, information found a way out. Inmates were getting their hands on tiny, sophisticated mobile phones. They couldn't make calls, but they could send encrypted messages, coordinating with the outside world. In 2023, police in Birmingham arrested someone planning an attack, only to discover they were taking orders from an inmate inside the HSU, supposedly the most secure, cut-off unit in the country. A raid uncovered 12 phones in the HSU alone. The chilling question is, how many more were missed? In Belmarsh, power isn't about controlling territory, it's about influence and connections. International crime syndicates were the first to master this. These weren't your average criminals. They were professionals with global networks. They began making deals with guards, with other inmates, trading information and access to contraband. By 2024, security analysts believed these networks had a significant hold inside the prison, not through force, but through pure strategic organization. But they weren't alone. Extremist groups were also recruiting and spreading their ideologies. And then, the unthinkable happened. These rival groups, from organized crime to extremist cells, started cooperating. Why? Because they all needed the same things: secret communication, corrupt guards, and ways to move information. They formed an unholy alliance. One group would handle the smuggling, another would create distractions. This was all exposed in 2024 by a massive investigation called Operation Harbinger. Police found inmates from different groups coordinating crimes on the outside while locked inside. 3 Belmarsh guards were arrested for taking bribes, one having pocketed over £50,000. As he put it, these people have resources, they have patience, and they never forget. But not everyone in Belmarsh is a lost cause. A program called the Healthy Identity Intervention offers a path to change. Trained mentors, many of them former extremists themselves, sit down with inmates and simply talk. They don't preach, they ask why. It's voluntary, but for some, it's a revelation. One former participant, who had planned to join a terrorist group, said it was the first time someone genuinely tried to understand his beliefs. After his release, he began working to steer young people away from radicalization. But stories like his are rare. For every genuine change, many just learn to say the right things. Guards say true change looks like doubt, while fakers radiate a perfect, rehearsed confidence. In the regular wings, life is a little different. Inmates can work in the kitchens or laundry for about £10 a week. But these jobs also create opportunities for crime. In 2022, an operation smuggling prohibited substances was uncovered in the kitchen. It had been running for 8 months, moving an estimated £100,000 worth of material. How did it go unnoticed? Budget cuts and overworked guards. The inmates always notice when the system is stretched thin. Violence is a constant currency, often planned to send a message of power. In 2021, an inmate was viciously attacked in the yard. The motive was unclear. Was he a snitch, in debt, or a victim of gang rivalry? The real reason was to show that the attackers could act with impunity. They were sentenced to more time and moved to the HSU. Their reputations cemented in fear. And so the cycle continues. If this documentary is opening your eyes to what really happens inside Belmarsh, help us reach more people by hitting subscribe. And let us know in the comments, should prisons like this exist, or is there a better way? Ever wonder how things get smuggled into the UK's most secure prison? The creativity is mind-blowing. Inmates have used letters written in invisible ink that only shows up under UV light. They've hidden tiny messages on the back of photos. They've even darkened specific words in a long letter. So when you read just those words in order, they spell out a secret message. But the most sophisticated attempt? That was discovered in 2023. A letter arrived for an inmate in the high security unit. It looked completely normal, just a chatty letter from his sister. But when guards put it under special lighting, they found the paper had been soaked in liquid synthetic drugs. The plan was for the inmate to dissolve the paper in water and drink it. This trick had apparently worked dozens of times before they caught on. Now, every single piece of paper is tested, which means mail can be delayed for days. Inmates say it violates their rights, but the prison says safety comes first. What no one says out loud is that sometimes the system is just slow, and innocent letters get delayed, slowly severing an inmate's connection to the outside world. When someone is finally released from Belmarsh, especially from the HSU, they aren't truly free. The government calls it monitoring. The person living it calls it harassment. They wear an electronic tag on their ankle that tracks their every move. If they step outside their approved zone, an alarm sounds and the police show up. They have strict curfews, often as early as 8 p.m. Miss it once, and you're right back in prison. Plus, there are constant check-ins with a probation officer, sometimes daily, answering questions about where you've been and who you've seen. Imagine trying to rebuild your life like that. Getting a job is nearly impossible when you can't work late. Making new friends is a struggle when you can't go out at night. It feels like you're still in prison, just with bigger walls. Some people manage it. They accept it as the price of freedom. Others break under the pressure and end up back inside. And a few, like the notorious Usman Khan, learn to play the game, appearing compliant while secretly planning something terrible. In 2025, the government announced a new rule. Former HSU inmates would face lifetime monitoring. Forever. Civil rights groups were outraged, calling it punishment without a trial. But the government fired back with a chilling statistic. 35% of people released from the HSU reoffend within 5 years, and many of those crimes are deadly serious. The debate rages on, leaving these individuals stuck in a strange limbo, not imprisoned, but not truly free either. But beyond the headlines, there are other stories from Belmarsh. Like the inmate who taught himself law from textbooks and successfully helped other prisoners with their appeals. Or the guard who noticed an inmate wasn't eating and discovered his mother had died. The guard bent the rules to let him call his family, a small act of kindness in a brutal place. There was even a teacher who brought in a simple radio. For men who only heard footsteps and clanging doors for years, that radio was a lifeline to the world. They'd argue about politics, laugh at commercials, and for 1 hour a week, they felt human again. These stories don't make Belmarsh a good place, but they remind us that humanity can flicker in the darkest of corners. Today, Belmarsh is old and falling apart. There's talk of building a new, more modern high-security prison. But would that solve the real problem? When you lock people away in total isolation, you don't make them better. You often make them harder, more damaged, and more dangerous. Look at a country like Norway. Their high-security prisons have inmates in private rooms, cooking their own meals, and interacting normally with guards. And their reoffending rate is one of the lowest in the world. Could Britain ever do something similar? Politically, it seems impossible. The public wants harsh punishment. But here's the paradox. Research shows that the harsher the prison, the more dangerous the person who comes out. We build places like Belmarsh to protect society, but are we accidentally making it less safe in the long run? Tonight, in Belmarsh, the cameras are rolling and the guards are watching. In one cell, a man thinks about the choices that led him there. In another, a man plans what he'll do when he's free, what message he'll spread. In a third, someone is praying. It's impossible to know if it's for forgiveness or for the strength to do it all again. Belmarsh is where Britain sends the people it fears most. But the walls aren't as solid as they seem. Influence spreads. Networks form. The people inside are learning, waiting, and most of them will get out one day. The real question isn't whether Belmarsh keeps us safe today. It's whether it's creating the dangers of tomorrow. One day, a name will appear in the news, a name from Belmarsh. And we'll all be left asking, could we have done something different? Every day, mail arrives at Belmarsh, one of Britain's most notorious high-security prisons. Letters from family, lawyers, and supporters. But getting a letter in isn't simple. Guards screen every single piece. They read it, check for hidden messages, and hunt for contraband. And they find some incredibly creative attempts. Letters written in invisible ink, tiny messages hidden on the back of photos, or even specific words subtly darkened to spell out a secret message. The most sophisticated method was discovered in 2023. A seemingly innocent letter from an inmate's sister was found to be treated with a liquid substance. The inmate was supposed to dissolve the paper in water and consume it. This trick had worked many times before it was finally uncovered. Now, every piece of paper is chemically tested, which means mail can be delayed for days. Inmates say this cuts them off from vital family contact. Officials say safety comes first. But the unspoken truth is that these delays, whether for security or just due to an overwhelmed system, slowly sever the ties to the outside world. Families stop writing, and inmates are left increasingly isolated. When someone is finally released from Belmarsh, especially from its high-security unit, they aren't truly free. They're under intense monitoring. An electronic tag on their ankle tracks their every move. Strict curfews mean they must be home early every evening. Miss it once, and you're back inside. Regular check-ins with a probation officer are mandatory. Imagine trying to rebuild your life under these conditions. Finding a job is nearly impossible with such tight restrictions. It feels less like freedom and more like a larger prison. Some manage, accepting it as the price for their release. Others crack under the pressure and end up back behind bars. In 2025, the government made these rules even stricter, with monitoring periods that could last indefinitely for some. Civil rights groups protested, arguing it's unfair punishment after a sentence has been served. But the government points to reoffending rates, creating a debate that continues to rage. For the people caught in the middle, life is a strange limbo, not imprisoned, but certainly not free. But amidst the harsh realities, there are stories that never make the headlines. The inmate who taught himself law and helped others win their appeals. The guard who noticed an inmate was silently starving from grief and arranged a call with his family. A small act of mercy in a merciless place. The teacher who brought in a simple radio, and for a few hours a week, the sound of news and music made the men feel human again, discussing current events and laughing at commercials. These small moments don't change the brutal nature of Belmarsh, but they show that even in the darkest places, flickers of humanity survive. The future of Belmarsh itself is uncertain. The building is old and decaying. There's talk of building a new, more modern facility. But many experts argue that a shinier cage is still a cage. They point to countries like Norway, where high-security prisons focus on dignity and rehabilitation, with inmates cooking their own meals and living in private rooms. The results are undeniable. Norway has one of the lowest reoffending rates in the world. Could Britain do the same? Public opinion leans towards tough punishment, not humane treatment. But the evidence is clear. Harsh prisons often create more dangerous criminals. We build places like Belmarsh to protect ourselves. But are we accidentally making society less safe in the long run? By isolating people and surrounding them with anger and violence, are we just hardening them, making them more likely to cause harm when they get out? Night falls on Belmarsh. Behind the thick walls, people are thinking, planning, and waiting. One day, most of them will walk free. The real question isn't whether Belmarsh keeps us safe today, but what kind of dangers it might be creating for tomorrow. The story of Belmarsh is about the choices we make as a society. Do we lock people away and forget them, or do we try to help them change? Every person inside will one day be on the outside, and the kind of person they become will be decided by what happens behind those walls. What we do, or fail to do, will have consequences for us all.